All right, good evening. I would like to call to order the January 27th, 2025 Lake Washington School Board meeting. Let the record reflect that all school board members are present, as well as two of our student representatives, Ella and Shira. The board values public participation and engagement in the meetings of the board. Board meetings will continue to be live streamed on the LWSD website and are available for viewing following the conclusion of the board meeting as well. The public are always welcome to email the board at boardmembers@lwsd.org. Director Stewart, will you please read the land acknowledgement?
Yes, ma'am. The Board of Directors of Lake Washington School District acknowledges that our district is on the indigenous land of the Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights on this land, including the Duwamish and the Snoqualmie Indian tribe. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived here since time immemorial. We commit to continue collaborating with our Native community to teach the indigenous history of this land and these local tribes to all children of our district. We also commit to provide the best possible education for all children of Native descent who attend our schools.
Thank you, Director Stewart. I will now entertain a motion to approve the January 27th, 2025 agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Liberty and seconded by Director Yoakum to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The first item on our agenda this evening is we do have a couple of recognitions. The first is a recognition for Career and Technical Education Month, which is the month of February. Director Liberty, will you please read the proclamation?
Yes. Whereas career and technical education offers students the opportunity to gain academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness, and whereas students in career and technical education programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase student engagement and achievement, and whereas career and technical education provides students with career exploration opportunities earlier in their education experience, which enables them to make informed and beneficial decisions about their academic coursework, as well as pursuit of established programs of study and career pathways. And whereas leaders from businesses and industry nationwide report increasing challenges related to the skills gap and connecting qualified professionals with available careers in critical and growing CTE-related fields, including healthcare, energy, advanced manufacturing, and information technology. And whereas career and technical education prepares students for these and other fulfilling careers by offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education and lead to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials. And whereas ensuring that ensuring that employers have access to a qualified workforce is a crucial step in ensuring productivity among the business and industry communities, as well as continued American economic growth and global competitiveness. And whereas Lake Washington School District has approximately 20,802 students participating in 109 different career and technical education courses options taught by 163 career and technical education teachers. Therefore, the Board of Directors do hereby proclaim February 1st through the 28th of 2025 as Career and Technical Education Month in Lake Washington School District.
Thank you very much. We do have another recognition this evening, and that is for National School Counseling Week, which is the week of February 3rd through 7th. Director Yoakum, will you please read our proclamation?
Yes. Whereas Lake Washington School District's 101 school counselors help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development. And whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children. And whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves. And whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society. And whereas comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school. Therefore, the Board of Directors do hereby proclaim February 3rd through 7th, 2025 as National School Counseling Week in Lake Washington School District.
Thank you very much. The next item we have on our agenda this evening is public comment. The Board of Directors of Lake Washington School District welcomes the public to the business meetings of the board and encourages community engagement. The board dedicates 30 minutes to hear from the public during the public comment period of the meeting, with each individual provided up to 2 minutes to speak. Participants should not expect a response from the board at the end of their comments, as we dedicate this time to listening to your voice and would like to get as many members of the public an opportunity to speak as time allows. Members of the public can sign up to participate on the district website at lwsd.org/board/public comments. Sign up closes at noon on the day of the board meeting, and comments will be offered in the order of sign up. We do have a stoplight right here to the left. It'll be green. At 1 minute, it'll go to yellow, and then when it flashes red, if you can go ahead and wrap up your comment if you've not already finished. We will go ahead and start public comment with Elizabeth Rothwell.
Into the microphone, you can move it, but make sure you're like this close to it, okay? Everyone ready? Should someone put their hand up?
Do you guys want to introduce yourself first?
Should we?
Hello everyone, we're representing Green Team at the Renaissance School of Art and Reasoning. Thank you all for having us today.
At Renaissance, most students are unwilling to drink water from the water fountain because of its reportedly unpleasant taste. Green Team tested the water and found that it contains elevated levels of bacteria and sulfur, which leads to the unpleasant taste.
Students have also witnessed insects die and remain in the fountain for months on end, leading to more unwillingness to use it. Additionally, students cannot consistently access the water refill station at Eastlake due to perimeter constraints during lunchtime.
This means Renaissance students don't have access to plastic-free water they're willing to drink. Students are currently purchasing disposable plastic water bottles from the cafeteria, leading to unnecessary plastic waste.
Last week, 82 students signed a petition to request a water refill station from the district. For context, there are only 86 students at Renaissance total.
We hope that you will help us obtain a water refill station at Renaissance. We would all appreciate your guidance and support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming. Dr. Holman has something he would like to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll check in with my team and have them follow up related to Renaissance specifically. So thank you.
Next, we have Mariana Hansen.
Okay, wait, I think, how many? Do you want one? Wait, actually,
Here you go. Sorry, buddy.
Good evening. My name is Mariana, and I am a 4th grader at Alcott Elementary. I'm here because I don't think that you should cancel the elementary band program. First of all, waking up early for band twice a week is good practice for middle school. Also, kids who play an instrument tend to do better in school, and it helps them learn a new skill. In addition, kids get the opportunity to make new friends and interact with kids from different elementary schools. My favorite part of band is learning to play songs such as Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, Are You Sleeping, and London Bridge on the clarinet. When I first started, I knew nothing about playing the clarinet, but now I am practicing and getting better each day. I wouldn't have been able to do any of it without my band teacher, Mr. Peterson. As you can see, elementary band should stay alive. And now I shall play London Bridge on the clarinet, and I would have never been able to play it if it weren't for elementary band.
Thank you very much. Next, we have 3 students signed up, and I believe you 3 are going to speak together and share your allocated 6 minutes, correct? All right, come on up. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening to our fellow board members. My name is Pahal Agarwal.
I'm Muskan Shamir.
And I'm Nada Abdulrahim.
We are sophomores at Eastlake High School, and today we come to you to present an increasing issue in our community, which is peer pressure. Peer pressure is when friends or people around you influence your choices, actions, or attitudes. It can be obvious or it can be subtle, and sometimes it pushes you towards great things, while other times it can really trip you down.
Peer pressure is a social influence that shapes various aspects of an individual's behavior and decision, such as fashion choices, consumer habits, and participation in activities. It also impacts how people treat others, conduct themselves in public, make academic decisions, and engage in risky behaviors. While peer pressure can sometimes encourage positive behaviors, it often has its negative effects, leading to poor choices, unhealthy habits, and compromised values. It can also cause stress, anxiety, and loss of self-confidence. By understanding peer pressure, individuals can strive to make choices that align with their own values and beliefs, rather than conforming to their peers' expectations.
Some statistics on peer pressure in the U.S. are that 85% of teens have experienced some form of peer pressure. 80% of teen smokers have started smoking due to peer pressure, and 75% of teens who drink alcohol started because of peer pressure. Alcohol and smoking can have adverse effects on teens' future and health. So to stop their influence on teen lives, we need to combat peer pressure. Peer pressure by itself has its own effects, including low self-esteem, no sense of self, inability to make their own decisions, emotional exhaustion, and distance in other relationships, all of which are detrimental to adolescent development.
We want to bring your attention to an event that happened within LWSD. 2 former students of Lake Washington High School passed away due to an overdosage of heroin. The reporters interviewed those parents as they talked about how their students were influenced by their peers that led them to go against their beliefs. One of the parents said, and I quote, "I know that one of her friends was using it and convinced her to try it. That was the one thing she said she would never do." Peer pressure highly impacts students' decisions and can change a student's beliefs and values just to fit in. Not only has peer pressure impacted LWSD, but also Issaquah District, where a group of students attending Skyline and Ballard High School passed away due to an overdosage of fentanyl. Parents of one of the students mentioned, and I quote, "We also recognize that friends often hold a powerful influence on their peers. These cases have talked about the dangers of overdosing, but very minimally do they explain the power of peer pressure, and that is what we aim to bring to you today."
Spreading awareness has a significant impact on communities when we dedicate time and effort to it. By discussing this issue with friends and family, we can help teens and adults in need. Working together, we can create a supportive environment where individuals feel empowered to make their own choices and resist peer pressure. We came together and created a step-by-step process that can help students navigate through peer pressure.
Step 1 is to understand your own preferences. Students should take their time and set their values straight. And when they put in time and effort in doing so, they can create a stronger baseline so that they know when others are crossing the line.
Step 2 is to recognize the consequences. When considering the potential outcomes of activities students are pressured into, it's important to think about the long-term and short-term effect on their health, well-being, and relationships.
Step 3 is to set clear boundaries. It's crucial for students to communicate their limits assertively, respectfully, and to be firm in upholding their boundaries. It's equally important to encourage them to practice saying no confidently so they can stand up for themselves.
Step 4 is to seek support from trusted adults. When students are overwhelmed by peer pressure, they should seek guidance from trusted adults like parents, teachers, or counselors. Building a support network offers security and reassurance, helping them navigate challenges.
We encourage you to implement and promote these steps and ideas to better help students combat peer pressure. This process will help them to navigate their peer pressure with confidence and make choices that truly reflect their own values and beliefs.
Making sure that teachers and staff are aware of peer pressure can help them support students. Teachers could receive training on how to be more friendly to students so that students feel safe when talking to a trusted adult about their problems and so they can implement step 4.
We also have an Instagram page which is on your brochure to get updates and more information on peer pressure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And the last person we have signed up for public comment this evening is Anaya Mitros.
Hello. So tonight, I'd like to speak to you about transparency and honesty. I'd like to start with the law, which speaks about high cap programs in the state of Washington, and it says, districts shall have a clearly defined and written assessment process. The high cap report I received last year says that typical score range for students, for identified students, is 95 and above. My daughter Sonoma scored 95 and 98 on FastBridge reading, and because we were new to the district, that's all the data the school district had. In spite of 95 and 98 both being above the written threshold of 95, Sonoma was not offered K5HC reading. She scored 1 and 98 on FastBridge math, and the district admitted that the 1 was an erroneous artifact, yet with that 98 math score, she was not offered K5HC math either. That doesn't seem like a clearly defined and written assessment process to me. I've repeatedly emailed the HiCap program at Lake Washington School District. I talked to OSPI. OSPI talked to Myra Arnon and Crystal Battle, and I still don't understand why my daughter is not in K5HC. Let me tell you how that impacts my twice exceptional child. She dislikes how slowly her teacher teaches math. I remember having a similar frustration myself, but patiently and attentively sitting through material presented slowly is likely harder for a kid with ADHD than for me. At home, my experience is that Sonoma is less able to keep her attention and thus absorb information when it is presented too slowly. It seems like the present arrangement for her is far from ideal. Inasmuch as I can tell, there is little to no differentiation offered in her present classroom, which makes me wonder whether the board has allocated tremendous resources to training teachers on differentiation for next year, or whether the planned restructuring of high-cap programs is akin to their elimination for many children. Transparency in public organizations is incredibly important, and I implore you to do better on this count and to follow through on the written promises that the school district makes. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our public comment for this evening. If you would like to stay for the rest of the board meeting, you're more than welcome to. If you wanted to go ahead and exit now, that's fine as well. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the January 27th, 2025 consent agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Stewart and seconded by Director LaLiberty. Superintendent Holman, will you please poll the board?
I will. Director Yoakum?
Yes.
Director Stewart?
Yes.
Director LaLiberty?
Yes.
Vice President Guthrie?
Yes.
And President Choi?
Yes, motion carries. Dr. Holman, will you review the donations this evening?
I will. In your packet, you have over $60,000 in donations coming from a variety of sources into our schools. Muir PTSA, Samantha Smith PTSA are all donating to their schools. We have an anonymous donor that has taken an interest in the ASB supports needed at Kamaikan Middle School. I've actually communicated with this individual around one of the gaps in our system right now, and that with the change in the law related to ASB funds, athletic fees, that are waived for students that qualify. It's a gap, and it's something we're analyzing so that we can address. And I know this individual wants to provide that support in real time, and so really appreciate that. We also know that our boosters provide great supports for our secondary schools. So we have our Eastlake High School band boosters. And then one of our partners that you typically don't see on our donations report, and that's Eastside Pathways. Eastside Pathways is a collective impact organization that we've been involved with for probably 10 plus years. And you can see here, Eastside Pathways is making a donation to support the Eastside Native American Education Program, ENAP. And Collective Impact it's really local entities that come together to solve problems that have community impact. And so school districts, government, business and industry, nonprofit, social organizations all come together to identify problems and work towards solutions. So appreciate them as a partner and appreciate them providing the support for ENAP.
Thank you very much. Next, we have legislative updates. Director Yocum, do you have an update for the board?
I do. I will be fast. Maybe. I did sign in last week for the Early Learning K-12 Senate hearing on the big three bills that were presented, which are the special education, MSOC, and transportation. And the good news is so many people signed in to testify, and the bad news was I wasn't called upon, which also could be good news, I guess. I'm really thankful for the superintendents and leaders and community members actually across the state who came to support the bills that were presented. I also just want to take a minute to really thank our district's government relations liaison, Caitlin Cox. She has done and continues to do so much behind the scenes work for this legislative session and so much other than that. She really lightens the load for this role of legislative representative in our district, and technically I think all districts in the state are truly benefiting from the work she does and the support she provides. So thank you, Caitlin. And just ending with a reminder that I'll be attending the National School Board Association's Advocacy and Equity Institute in Washington, D.C. next week. And we do have meetings lined up with Congresswoman Del Bene, Shannon Lynch, the legislative aide for Congresswoman Schreier, and Senator Murray.
Thank you. Dr. Holman, is there a staff legislative update?
Yeah, Associate Superintendent Posthumus has a brief update just to give the board some information.
Great. I'll just provide an update of kind of the staff work since the last board meeting. So with the new session underway, the Senate Education Committee jumped right into some of the bills that we're following closely. Senator Dingra's LGO bill, or Senate Bill 5095, got a hearing the first week on January 16th. I went down along with Caitlin and Director Choi to testify in person on that bill. Many districts testified in support, either in person or signing in, supporting the bill. During the presentation, Senator Wellman noted that it would help create options for districts. The Rep. Callan companion bill in the House, we're still waiting for that to be introduced. We also testified, I testified that same day on Senate Bill 5186, which allows changes bond approval from 60% to 55%. We asked that the bill be modified to simple majority of 50%. For the big three bills, again, 2 special ed funding, 1 transportation, 1 MSOC were heard on Wednesday, January 22nd. As Director Yocum mentioned, huge showing of support. More than 1,000 people signed in to support the bill. The committee is scheduled to take action on 3 of the 4 bills in executive session this Thursday. The early action on the big 3 priorities is really encouraging. And again, their fate will ultimately be negotiated with the operating budget. The House Education Committee has started off slower than the Senate with a number of work sessions. They've got 7 new members getting up to speed on the Washington education system and funding. In total, 76 education bills have already been introduced between the House and the Senate committees. A handful more referred to other committees. Of the bills introduced, there are 3 Senate and 5 House bills relating to special education funding. Both chambers have MSOC and transportation proposals. And in the House, House Bill 1356 has a bill that touches on special education, levy lid changes, substitute teacher allocations, and K-12 funding formula. So that's my update.
Thank you very much. The first item we have on the non-consent agenda this evening is updated policy language for operational expectation 3. Dr. Holman.
Yeah, and so I really appreciate the conversation we had at our last board meeting, and you'll see in the strike-through language that's in the board's packet, responsive to the majority of the feedback from our adult board members and student board reps. Really appreciated their feedback that they provided through that process as well, specifically related to making sure we make the connection of parents being informed about academic supports for students, and they made the connection of, well, if it's just content and not social emotional well-being and learning, then that's a disconnect for parents, and so really appreciated them pointing that out. And so I didn't receive any questions or comments from the board. I'm happy to take questions, but if there are none, I hand it back to you.
Did anybody have any questions or clarifications? Okay, I will now entertain a motion to accept the superintendent interpretation and indicators for operational expectation 3, community engagement and experience.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Stewart and seconded by Director Yoakum. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is policy adoption 2409, credit for competency/proficiency. Dr. Holman.
It's a mouthful, and given our governance model, I just want to take a moment to explain why is administrative policy coming to the board to adopt, because you have delegated authority to the superintendent to manage, maintain, and update administrative policy as opposed to the board taking action on every policy. And so in a standard governance model, school board takes action on policy and then directs the superintendent to develop procedures that implement that policy. There are times in administrative policy that the law requires the board to adopt or take action on policy. That is probably less than 1% of administrative policy. Graduation requirements is one of those policy sets that the board has to take action on. And so tonight, Associate Superintendent Dr. Rose is here to provide an update related to a policy that really is helping us move forward our high school day work as we identify and consider options, opportunities, flexibility for students. And this is probably the first of a number of updates that we will think about in this regard over the next couple of years. So with that, I'll hand it to Dr. Rose.
Thank you. We are excited about this. This is, like Dr. Holman said, this is our continued thinking about how can we recognize that our students come to us with all kinds of strengths, and that there are multiple ways of recognizing their learning, and that we want to continue to think about how do we do that in ways that really benefits them and gives openness and gives space for their passions, especially as we think about shifts in our high school day. So the policy itself is very simple. We did a thorough review of the WASDA policies looking at performance-based credit. And there's a number of policies, but the language here essentially says what I was just saying, that we recognize that there are many methods of demonstrating competency or proficiency of state learning standards. In the multiple WASDA policies, they have usually a sentence or two that talks about why science is so important, or why math is important, or why ELA is important. And as we think about policy, we want to make it be as simple and as clear as possible, and that it can translate directly into ways that we're able to support our students. And with these policies, our counselors and our families in thinking about implementation. So this policy, this is the the entirety of the policy is just essentially saying we're looking for ways to recognize student learning. So I'll pause for a moment. And that we will develop a procedure to go with the policy. And the purpose of this policy is really to continue to deepen a strengths-based approach to recognizing learning for our students. When we think about how much they bring to the table, that some of the policy and the procedures allow us to recognize strengths that they might bring with speaking world languages, speaking other languages at home. The other parts are really looking at some similar practice from other districts where if a student passes the SBA, the state has said that's an important measure of what they achieve in high school. And so if a student passes either the ELA portion of the SBA or the math portion, we are adopting, or this would be part of the procedure that we would look at giving our students credit for that. That would essentially be, for most students, it would be credit retrieval. So if they didn't pass the semester of 9th grade and they passed the SBA, they have, through a performance-based measure, demonstrated the learning, so we could essentially backfill that credit. If they had an N or if they were transferring with an F. So it's one of those things that we looked at for our students who, for whatever reason, were not able to pass that class. We're still able to recognize their learning and support them to have more freedom and more openness in their high school schedule as juniors and seniors. The other thing that part of the policy would allow us to do as part of the procedure is we have more and more students coming to us with, I'll say it's difficult to pull out what their transcripts are saying sometimes. Or for some of our students, they're not able to come to us with a formal transcript and they're not able to get it from the schools where they were in a different country for whatever reason. This policy would allow us to have procedure with that point that would allow us to grant credit for students who have demonstrated learning mastery through the SBA. So that's something we're really excited about, that it's a way to be able to recognize student learning. It's pretty common in our district, for regional districts, to have something where they're awarding performance-based credit. The model policies for WASDA, a lot of them are, at this point, they feel a little bit like kitchen sink. You could have all kinds of things put in there. And as Dr. Holman said, we'll be looking to continue this work over the years, but we want it to be really clear-cut. We want it to be something that directly recognizes student learning, and that we're able to help our students plan really proactively for moving forward. A benefit of this policy and an accompanying procedure would be flexibility for credit accrual choice to increase student choice, that if they're not having to make up credits in some places, or if they're gaining elective credits or an original credit for science, that would be something we're excited about. That we, again, really want to think about how we're recognizing our student learning achievements in flexible and rigorous ways, and we want that to show up on the transcript. We want it to really count for something that students are able to demonstrate their learning. So that is our goal with the policy and the accompanying procedure. And so these are some of the things that we would plan on putting into the procedure, that for thinking about the SBA, if a student already earned 9th grade and 10th grade ELA credit, it wouldn't replace that credit that's already earned. It would be really thinking about how are we recognizing students for the learning that they're able to demonstrate, but it would be not replacing 9th and 10th grade if they've already gained credit in that. Our world language proficiency, moving that into this policy, we would be moving it out of 2410, which is more in line with WASDA model policy. It's currently been in our graduation requirement 2410P for describing the levels of language that a student needs to earn a certain amount of credits. Moving it into 2409 and 2409P is much more in line with WASDA model policies. The other piece that we're excited to do is that as students achieve high school, they can achieve up to 1 elective credit for completing the high school and beyond plan. And that's a multi-year effort on the students' part that we want to recognize that they are completing assessments, they are completing work as they go through the years, that we can set that up to recognize it as elective credit. So the overall procedure for 2409 really gives our students some opportunities to fulfill graduation requirements and give further course taking opportunities. We are really excited about it, and as Dr. Holman said, we think this is a first step as we build out systems to really be able to think about how can we recognize student learning that's relevant and rigorous and supports the passion of the student and recognizes their learning as we go forward. Some examples would be, like I shared, examples and scenarios would be that a student who received an N in grade 9 or 10 English, Algebra 1, or Geometry could essentially backfill that credit. And that could be something that we would look at ways to systematize that. So it's really important to us that students, that you don't have to know about a policy or a procedure to take advantage of it, that it's something that we could build into our systems to recognize which students were in need of credit and pass the SBA, and be able to think about how we streamline that. Students who receive an N in a non-lab science course or who need additional non-lab science credit, the WCAS at 11th grade, passing that is indicative of mastering multiple years of NGSS standards. They don't align to a single course anymore. So like some districts used to give credit if you passed the EOC, you could get credit in biology. The end of course biology exam is not in existence anymore. It's the 11th grade WCAS, which measures proficiency in NGSS standards. So the integrated science fits most clearly with that as a state course code. And then again, recognizing that we have many students coming to us with high levels of learning and are unable to show that on a transcript. And we really want to be able to recognize that for our students. And our students who are proficient in multiple languages, that's something that we are leaders in the state for the percent of our graduates that have the seal of biliteracy and the number of credits that our students have. So we really are excited about recognizing that further. And then again, just having opportunities for our students to fulfill graduation requirements and give them more opportunities to pursue their passions and have more choice in what they choose to take in high school. So that is our very fairly simple policy and the procedure, the plan for the procedures behind it. So I wanted to open it up for discussion.
Yeah, and I told Dr. Rose that I would add this in my prelude, and I forgot to. The request really is for the board to take action and adopt tonight with a single reading of this policy. And why are we asking? It's a relatively simple policy, but also the work associated with that in real time, given we're in the midst of student registration, we are thinking about the shift to a 6-period day and those supports, and any one of these there's work that has to be associated with making sure that there's protocols and procedures in place to be able to implement. So that's why we bring it tonight and request a single reading.
Are there any questions? Yes, Shira.
Okay, so I don't know if this is like too specific, but how does the high school and beyond plan like translate to credits? Like,
right.
Just because I've done it, so I would just question
Right.
how it would translate.
Right. It's multiple years of work that students do in classrooms that consist of different types of assessments, that when you complete that full plan, it can add up to an elective credit. So it's not a CTE credit, but it's recognizing that students spend multiple years, and you generally have done it in classrooms in addition to the coursework that you did for that class. So it's considered additional classwork, schoolwork, and so it can be an elective credit.
And this is like reference to like Zello and stuff like that?
Correct.
Okay, correct. Thank you.
Any other questions? Director Guthrie.
Is this fairly minor? Are other districts doing this as well? Sort of these similar motions to be able to award credit, or is this something unique to Lake Washington, or like for example, having being able to replace use SBA to replace 9th and 10th grade? It seems to make sense. I just want to make sure that's
multiple districts have this in place already. For many districts, this is not new. So, for example, looking at the procedure, we've really liked Shoreline's very clear procedure, but Issaquah has something similar. Many districts have it more, have a lot of language around it, and we're working to make it be as clear as possible right now. But it's pretty common, and it's become more and more common, really under direction from the State Board of Education, to recognize student learning in ways that give students credit and allow them more freedom in their course taking.
And it's a half a credit that can be replaced. It isn't a full year or a full
Correct.
2 years of credit that can be achieved through this.
Right, correct.
And the reason it's 9th and 10th grade and algebra geometry, that's what Smarter Balanced Assessment is assessing in 10th grade, is the standards related to grade 9 and 10 and algebra geometry.
Director
Sorry, I guess that's a point of clarification too. That when you say SBAs, you're specifically talking about 10th grade SBAs or 11th for
Correct.
WCAS, not like 8th grade.
No, yes, high school SBA and WCAS.
Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
Is there any feedback from colleges about how this is viewed? Recognizing that not all of our students, their goal is not always college, but understanding, there was a discussion amongst parents recently about specifically around world language, and world language is just one of these areas where there's a lot of confusion around what exactly colleges are looking for. You know, is sort of this competency-based crediting seen as valid? Do they really want to see students physically in a classroom? So I don't know if you're aware of how these credits would be viewed, or if we could be potentially, you know, what I want to avoid is that we say to students, you know, oh, you can just take this test and it'll be great, and then they get to senior year and suddenly colleges are like, you know, this is on your transcript, but we don't accept this, or we look at this differently.
I've never heard anything but really positive things about the world language credits being placed on a transcript, and for a seal of biliteracy. I can look into it more, but I've never heard anything but really positive, because what it demonstrates is a student, like, they're coming in with lived language, like they are fluent in multiple languages, and they frequently are bringing a deeper world perspective, or not deeper, a deep world perspective with them. The goal that I know of from colleges, from working with them as a high school principal and in a couple of different roles, the purpose of world language is to have global citizens. And so it's not necessarily the grade in Spanish 1. That's fine as well. It's really thinking about the skill set that the student brings. So I can do more digging into that, but I was actually working with 2 of our specialists today who'd both recently had been high school counselors, and they call this policy, they're talking about a number of different things that we're working with counselors around the high school day, and they said this policy and the accompanying procedure will be absolutely seen as a win by the counselors. Like, this is something that directly, practically helps students, and helps them ensure that students who are ready to graduate are able to graduate and not held back by essentially what is a technicality if they've passed SBA and don't have credit for at least part of their ELA or math learning. So, but I can look at it more. In thinking about students that might use it for backfilling for a credit for a class where they received an N, those students, the transcript would be reflecting that anyway. But for competency-based, it usually, like, in my work with colleges, they're really looking for students who are who own their learning, who are demonstrated that they are able to go beyond what a classroom asks of them. And so a lot of proficiency-based credit demonstrates that to colleges. Yeah.
I think one last question for you. About, to your best guess, about how much of our student population would benefit or would utilize this graduation pathway?
With performance-based credit with this, I don't know, but I can put that in a brief in the near future for you.
Just curious.
Yeah. I believe, I'm trying to remember, it'll be in OE11, the number of students that had credits through the world language testing. So I can look that up and send it to you, but we can also put it in a board brief of how many students this could potentially benefit.
And the number of students that would benefit from an ELA or math credit, it's relatively small. And so this is, again, working to close gaps for students. And I think about a student's freshman year, there's a lot of students that stub their toe their freshman year, and then like this kind of support would allow them to not have to then take an additional ELA credit. And they can, maintain their, coursework and things like that into the future. So this is also kind of a safety net for students.
I want to affirm that in a recent conversation I was in at Juanita High School in one of their Flex Academy classes in December, and I was talking with students about like making up courses because they were doing credit retrieval at that point, and these 2 students were talking about, they were really funny because they called themselves names when they were freshmen and sophomores, and basically said like, I don't know what we were thinking, we were just really difficult. And we kind of got it together after sophomore year, and we really are focused and want to graduate. And to have anything that honors that people grow up, and or things happen in a year, and you may have mastered the learning and you're not able to demonstrate it. So anything that we can have that's genuine, rigorous, relevant, and recognizes achievement. This is not something that's easy. The more tools we have to support students, the better.
Thank you. Any other questions? Nope, I think we're good. I will now entertain a motion to approve the policy for 2409 credit for competency/proficiency as presented.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Guthrie and seconded by Director Liberty. Is there any further discussion? Nope. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The next item on our agenda this evening is the superintendent report. Dr. Holman.
So tonight I wanted to, bless you. As I mentioned, I wanted to just bring a program and budget update. As we make announcements and decisions, I think it's important to review kind of where we are and some of the implications and impacts. We heard a young lady tonight talk about one of our programs that we're sunsetting and the benefits that it provided to her. We know that's a reality for a number of our students, and we don't want to discount that experience. And yet, there's changes that need to be made, and so appreciate her coming and sharing that experience with us, because we also, a lot of what she said is really why we want every student to have instrumental experiences, and so appreciate her coming in and giving voice to that. This is something that I brought to the board of directors maybe 2.5 years ago. We had gone through a process to close our online school, and it was, all intents and purposes, I still believe it was the right decision. It was the process that we stumbled with. And so I brought this to the board to really remind myself, my team, and commit to how we would walk through these processes. And so I just wanted to review this, because I think it's important to then say, how do we do with that? Each time we make a decision, go a direction, because this commitment really is about ensuring that there's communication and engagement with those that are impacted and affected. Number one is really that broad communication of areas being considered, and we do that in a number of ways, some of which we establish committees, some we reach out to those that are participating in programs and seek feedback. We share information around challenges we're having as we identify those areas. Use of the equity analysis tool. And I don't know if I've ever brought to the board and really unpacked our equity analysis tool. And so on a high level, I grabbed kind of the steps that the equity analysis tool references. And it isn't always about, are you filling out a document of the tool? It's really a commitment to ensuring that we're interrogating the questions, those impacted by decisions, whose voice isn't represented in a decision. And so step one of the equity analysis tool is really setting outcomes, identifying and engaging stakeholders. Because if you don't spend the time to actually truly identify who's affected by this, then it typically is going to be status quo, and those that you generally communicate with will be maybe knowledgeable and maybe communicated with, but really being intentional about that is important. Engaging stakeholders in analyzing data. Sometimes that's seeking data and reporting back out to them. At times, I'm in our K-8 highly capable. I know there was data brought into the room to unpack and analyze. And so there's multiple ways to address these things, but it's really the commitment to working through this. Step 3 is about ensuring educational and racial equity to determine benefit or burden. And I really like that language because it forces those that are decision makers to spend time understanding who's benefiting and who's not. And then that leads to step 4, which I can tell you with any decision that we've made this year, there are people that benefit and there's people that are burdened. And our assurance is that we work through the processes to understand what does success look like, but also how are we mitigating the challenges that those that are burdened by these decisions can be supported through. I have a link here to our overall equity analysis tool. I will upload this to board docs so that that you can review the overall equity analysis tool. It's a great guide that as we think about any of these types of decisions, it truly does ground us back in thinking deeply about impact and how to support those that are burdened by decisions. The next step in the really the communication and engagement expectations was about targeting communication to those most directly affected by a potential action. And again, that goes back to the equity analysis tool. If you don't know who's affected and if you haven't thought through that process, then targeting communication is really difficult. And so that's something the team has been doing, making data available. For any of these decisions, we have a trove of data that we keep a web presence around, whether it's high school day, K-8 highly capable, elementary band and orchestra. There's significant data that we have used to make inferences, to understand, and then ultimately to make decisions. And then providing an opportunity for people to provide inputs, and that can be through surveys. You saw last week in the video that I shared, we gave folks the opportunity to submit questions for informational sessions, opportunity with email link to submit more narrative comments, and we have individuals that have utilized both through that process. Clarity regarding timelines for decision making so that people are aware of what the decision is and when a change will occur. Critical path timing. That's a term that came from one of our office professionals, and I don't recall exactly which change it was referred to, but this was a couple of years ago, and we had made an announcement on a religious holiday, and that announcement affected a large group. And so I don't remember exactly what it was, but her comment was, be thoughtful and mindful about when you announce things, because at times it can feel like piling on. And maybe that can't be avoided all the time, but being thoughtful about it as we go through these things is important. One of the questions we received from some of our elementary school teachers was, you made this announcement right before conferences. That's difficult. And there was conversation around that, and what we know is there were pros and cons to sharing that information with community ahead of time, ahead of conferences and after conferences. The decision was made to share it ahead of conferences, and then Myra and her team actually developed resources for our teachers to have available with them at conferences to be able to either answer questions or give families information for how they can get their questions answered, because I can guarantee you our teachers aren't fully prepared to answer all the questions that parents have related to changes, but we wanted to give them the tools and resources to be able to respond to families. And so, again, there wasn't a perfect timing around it, and a decision was made and resources provided in that regard. Feedback is an interesting one. Feedback can be, information all the way to making the decision, and everywhere in between. And being clear about what we're asking in regards to feedback. There's times where the feedback really is around the impact on an individual or group. on a decision that was made, as opposed to feedback on the actual decision. In each of these situations, there's variations of input through the process, and opportunities for comment post-decision as well, as I shared. And then those most directly affected by the action will receive direct communication. That's possible sometimes, and that's not possible sometimes. I can tell you with our decision related to highly capable and elementary band and orchestra, making sure that our staff was aware prior to communication going out. We know that our committees are notified of these things, and then with kind of this large of a stakeholder group, not every individual can be communicated with ahead of time, and so just being mindful of that as we go through that. And so this truly has been influential as we work through these processes, and some of these, it's like, check, we did great, and some of these, you know, there's room for learning and growth. So the recent announcements, you heard me talk about these. First is the K-8 Highly Capable Program Review, has been in motion for about 2.5 years, with a large group engaged in really difficult conversations. And so the most recent announcement shifted the delivery of the delivery model for K-5 students that are qualified in a single domain to classroom-based services. You saw the announcement that we're sunsetting the Pull-Out Quest program, and that for those students that are currently participating in Pull-Out Quest, the offer of full-time Quest if families and students are interested. And the other is the before school elementary band and orchestra, and so this will be the last year, 24-25, of that program. It will shift to an instrumental instruction within the school day for grades 4 and 5 students. An instrumental doesn't mean that all students will have a violin in their hands, but the team is going through and identifying a variety of instruments to have a number of different experiences for students. And anytime you have an instrument in your hands, you're learning positioning, you're learning how to read music. So there's so much that goes into that, and so that's the piece there. You've heard me say through this whole budget process that we are in a fortunate position. Many districts are in slash and burn mode. We get to be much more thoughtful around the work we're doing in evaluating programs, how that translates to changes for programs, and how we're thinking about budget impacts. And so I want to walk through both for highly capable and our elementary band and orchestra, some of those components. And so thinking about the financial reinvestment and the learning that will accompany this change, overall, this is a change of about $2.2 million worth of staffing. We're going to reinvest about $1.5 million of those staffing dollars back into primary elementary staffing. And because we know right now that our K5HC program is part of and considered one of the elements of our K3 class size reduction formula. And so this gives us the opportunity to continue to identify primary classrooms that need additional staffing, because we know if students have a great start in early elementary, that gives them a great opportunity not only to transition to school, but we know that the board and my commitment is that every third grader leaves third grade literate. And so pushing more resources into our early elementary grades is a great opportunity. And then as we think about the resources for teachers and the professional learning, we know that the students that currently are participating in the K5HC program, they're in the general education class 99.5-ish% of the time. I mean, their primary learning space is in the general education classroom. And so our teachers are already engaged with these learners, and we want to make sure that our staff have the resources and supports to be able to consider how are they supporting, differentiating, and ensuring that that these supports are in place. And so the team is currently working on supports for illustrative mathematics. That's what IM is, and I'm just really proud I was able to say it. Both IM and literacy extensions and problem-based projects for our highly capable, qualified students. My guess is our teachers will also find other learners in the classroom that will benefit from these opportunities as well. And so working on the resources so that teachers have those, and then also providing professional learning for our general education teachers, but also our our MTSS coaches, because their support for our classroom teachers is essential in this as well. And so that's just some of the reinvestment and learning. The overall budget reduction is about $700,000. And so you can see the reinvestment is more than double what the budget, I'll call it savings, but reduction in expenditures. Same thing for elementary band and orchestra. We do have a reinvestment since we are shifting to a completely different model that is universal access and opportunity for grades 4 and 5 students. And so Dr. Rose and her team have been working through instruments, the lesson plans that go with those instruments to make sure that our schools actually start the year 25-26 with those in hand to be able to start this day one. It will cost about a one-time cost of about $300,000. And my assurance to Dr. Rose was to make sure that we, make this purchase right. And so that's why I put a plus there, because our commitment to our community was that our students will have unique and universal experiences using instruments in grades 4 and 5. And so we want to make sure that the purchase of those resembles that commitment, and our teachers have what they need. We actually had a pilot program this year, actually I think a couple of pilot programs of the instrumental learning in grades 4 and 5, so we actually had some learning related to that at a couple of schools. In terms of learning, making sure that our elementary teachers have the support they need to implement this kind of model in their classrooms. It's not the first time our elementary music teachers have taught instrument learning in their classrooms. This will definitely be a different experience, though, as they'll have a variety of instruments that they're working through 4th and 5th grades. And then just ongoing engagement with our secondary music leads to identify supports specific to middle school and high school, because our commitment is to continue to maintain exceptional music programs here in Lake Washington School District. And so knowing that the first time a student may touch an instrument related to band and orchestra may be in middle school, we want to be responsive to that. We want to make sure that there's supports in place to support that. The engagement with our secondary music leads has been really good, and they've been able to identify some of those supports that are needed. We're also thinking about our high schools, and this is the commingling of decision points as we think about shifting from a 7 to a 6 period day. You all have heard questions around, well, how do you maintain an exceptional music program? We know we can, and that is our commitment to make sure that that occurs. And so there is staffing that does come alongside elementary band and orchestra. The overall budget reduction is about $800,000. That budget reduction is realized year over year, where the reinvestment is a one-time investment. And so the board would see this reduction in the ongoing budget. And so I just really appreciate our community, our students, our staff, and then my central team for working through these processes, being thoughtful about how do we move towards something. It isn't just about ending, concluding, cutting something else. And in each of these situations, I think we're moving towards new opportunities for students.
Thank you very much, Dr. Holman. The next item on our agenda this evening is school visits and community affairs. This portion of the business meeting of the board is an opportunity for any of the board members to inform and provide updates from school visits or from organizations or groups that they engage with on behalf of LWSD. Are there any updates? Director Yoakum.
So this morning, Kirkland Councilmember Amy Falcone and I led the first of 5 educational sessions with the new Lake Washington PTSA advocacy group. The purpose of these sessions is to meet our community members where they are on their advocacy journey, to provide education, empowerment, and encouragement to help them be effective advocates for children and to inspire others to do the same. So we had a small but really engaged group today, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
Anyone else? Director Guthrie.
I attended the meeting of the Board of Trustees for the Lake Washington Schools Foundation a week or 2 ago. They're starting to blend together now, all the weeks. And had to kind of pop in and out, so I was a little less able to engage a little bit less than I usually do. But they had some questions around the district strategic plan and sort of what the status is on that. They're also planning for their big spring fundraiser, which I believe everybody's gotten invites to. It's at the end of March. Yeah, that's update from that organization.
Anyone else? Okay, next we will move on to committee updates. Does anyone have an update they would like to provide from any committee meetings they had? Director Yoakum.
So I attended the first inclusion committee meeting of the school year, and this followed our study session on secondary special education inclusion, so it was nice and timely. It was a small group split between district staff and parents, and I was actually the only parent there who had children in our secondary schools. We split into 2 groups to answer the question, what does secondary special education inclusion look like? And the group I observed created a fairly long list. At the top of the list was an administrator with a vision and a collective ownership of that vision. Other ideas that they had were flexible adult thinking, community and collaboration, trust and transparency, inclusion that is visible, inclusion is across an entire experience, clubs, activities, etc., and teachers who really know the students. So I'm looking forward to continuing to participate in this group throughout the year.
Director LaLiberty.
The Sustainability Advisory Committee met on January 23rd. It was the first meeting of this committee. It was a get to know you, review the purpose of the committee, which is to provide direction to the district on operationalizing the relatively newly adopted board policy. It was a great meeting. We in particular focused on, maybe I just told myself a little bit there that I may have overly participated. The committee focused on, in particular, on OE 9.1, which is reducing and mitigating the environmental impact of district operations. There was a roundtable format. Feedback was provided to the district about how they could think about that policy and think about measuring that and operationalizing it. It was a really neat meeting. There was a lot of great energy, a lot of enthusiasm. It was well attended. Given the feedback at the end of it, I have every expectation the next meeting will be similarly well attended in March.
Director Guthrie.
Last week, I attended Community Connectors had a meeting. This is the second meeting of the year. And that group has been charged, or I guess initially started last year, looking at the district's Community Resource Officer Program, CROs. Although it's kind of gone off in all sorts of different, in very interesting and related directions. So we spent the first part of the meeting looking at some data. This has become kind of a regular occurrence. The group last year came up with some data points that they wanted to look at around the CRO program. And so typically district staff brings that data to each meeting and we go over it. So that was, it's kind of a standing agenda item. I believe this was the first time too. We've looked at the CRO data, so the actual police officers from the 3 jurisdictions that work on our campuses. This meeting, we also looked at the school security personnel activity. Those are district staff different district staff who also work in the security space, but are not police officers. So they're also certainly deeply involved in maintaining a safe environment on our campuses, but just a different set of data and very different data, because the roles that those two those people or those groups serve on our campuses is very different. There was a question, and this was before the communications that went out last week. The meeting was around ICE in schools, just given the current political climate. So it was great because we also have City of Kirkland staff in that regularly attend that group, and so there's intersections with the district and with our cities, with our police departments, and so on. So it was great to have representation from multiple entities there to address those questions. And then we spent the last part of the meeting talking about really who else can we bring to that table. So specific connections, for example, PTSA came up as in terms of groups that we can work with to reach out to our community and to get a better sense of to reach individuals who aren't part of this group, but to answer questions in that space. And after we identified some of those folks, then we started talking about, well, what would we ask these people? And so there was some good discussion around that. So as always, a really well-attended group, really thoughtful group, very diverse in terms of backgrounds and experiences and perspectives. So always appreciate them letting me listen in.
I have an update on the Facilities Advisories Committee meeting that I attended, I think it was a week ago. All the weeks are blending together. It was the same day that we went to Olympia. I remember that. That day, it was a long day, but we went over, if you believe it or not, the planning for our next round of levies in 2026 is underway, and started off kind of the timeline and discussion around the technology and capital projects levy for the February 2026 election. Kicked off the meeting. We also went over a legislative update because we had just been to Olympia, and so we were excited to share kind of how that went. There were project updates which were exciting to hear about, one being the Juanita Fieldhouse and Community Pool. There's a remaining modernization of that pool facility. It's a $25.1 million upgrade. I believe there's communication that went out about it today. And right now they're in pre-design phase. And yeah, just they've done a lot. If you've been in the field house and the pool, you've seen kind of work over the years coming down the pipeline, and then this is kind of the last bit. We also talked about the sustainability and clean buildings update. Comprehensive high schools are expected to be in compliance with Washington State Clean Buildings Performance Standards by June 1st, and so got an update from Brian Buck and his team about where we're at and how things are looking and what more we need to do to get there. And then we wrapped up with sustainability discussion, where we had roundtable discussions, and it was particularly interesting. I got to sit and listen to some of our high schoolers who are a part of the committee, and about how is composting at the school level from a day-to-day experience. What is it really like, and what ideas and suggestions they might have for it to be better or to change. And so it was great to get to hear them from their day-to-day lived experiences, and specifically they were students at Eastlake High School. So other than that, we got a quick tour of Redmond Middle School's additions, which we actually also saw at the school visit. But yeah, that's how we wrapped up that meeting. Let's see. Next, the board plans to meet on February 1st. We have a Saturday extended study session from 8 a.m. to noon for a board self-assessment. And then on February 10th, we've got a 5 o'clock study session and 7 o'clock board meeting. The board will now meet in exec session for 70 minutes for the purpose of a discussion with legal counsel about current or potential litigation for 60 minutes, and then the performance of a public employee for 10 minutes. Please note, executive sessions are closed to the public. The board will convene an executive session starting at 8:30. At the conclusion of the exec session, the January 27th, 2025 board meeting will be adjourned at 9:40. There are no additional agenda items, and there will be no board action following exec session. Should the board require additional time to meet in executive session, I, as board president, will announce an extension of the executive session. The board will now convene into executive session. Thank you, everyone.